Hey, first, I'd really like to thank everybody that came tonight on such short notice, and especially all the people that drove a long way. We got people from Saline County, from Garland County, from Pulaski County, other counties. So yeah, everybody, thank you so much for that. And, first thing I'm gonna do real quick is I want to start with a prayer, if that's okay. So where's Margot? Just sorry.
You want me to pray?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story really quick, and it's that I was raised an atheist, and I became a Christian about 3 years ago. And so I will happily pray, but I'm not practiced at it. My little 4-year-old son reminds me to pray every night, which is terrific. But I'll just say, hello, God, because that's how I talk to God. Thank you so much for everything you've been doing for Arkansas. It's been amazing to be a part of. Thank you for bringing us all here tonight. Thank you so much for Jennifer for how you have managed to put everybody in the right place to be able to connect with each other and rely on each other and make such extraordinary things happen. And I'm so excited to see what you do with us, not just here right now, but for all of these months going forward. Thank you so much. And please continue to bless our hearts and our intentions and our love for one another and for you, and guide us into your plan, which is not only righteous, but so much fun. Amen.
Amen. Okay, once again, thank you guys for coming. I built this as a public meeting because I wanted it to truly be public, not just for Republicans, but for anybody, because the subject that we're talking about is the talk of Democrats, it's the talk of independents, it's the talk of everybody, right? And so I want everybody to have the correct information in regards to this.
Amen.
And so what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to have Jennifer come up, but I want to go over a few things. I want everybody in this room, if you've got a question, I want to make sure we get it asked and we get it answered. If you got a comment, we want to hear it, okay? And while we're probably going to have some differences of opinion on things, the only thing I would ask is that we make sure we're respectful of each other. And so if somebody's comment is different from yours or a different feeling, let's respect that, okay? And let's make it very civil. And let's have a good back and forth. Because the idea behind this is there's so much misinformation going around in regards to this. Okay? I'm not here to tell you you've got to agree with closed primary. I'm not here to tell you that. I just want you to have the facts. And then you can make your own decision on where you stand on issues, okay? Not just on closed primaries, but we want to talk about everything that happened at the convention. And we want to talk about the process that's happening now as a result from what happened at the convention. And what are the next steps for the party, the Secretary of State? Does the legislature have a role? The whole 9 yards. If there's any issues with what happened at the convention, as far as any questions on rules or how it was done, ask it, okay? Because we're blessed that we have the convention chair. We have the horse's mouth, so to speak, right here. So Jen, you want to come on?
Okay, well, thank you all so much. It is such an honor to be up here, but I want to touch on something that Margot said in her prayer, just how thank God for bringing us all together, because even though I'm standing up here right now, at the next meeting or next event, it could be any one of you, because what we're doing, this whole movement, is just about educating, iron sharpening iron, raising people up to come together, to use the knowledge and the power that we are equipped with, to use it for God's glory and for our nation's good. And so that is the whole purpose behind what we're doing. So thank you for electing me as your convention chair. I take that as a huge honor, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So, ready?
All right, real quick, we're gonna get Elizabeth to come up, and she has done a great job of putting together a summary of what happened at the convention, short enough that they're out in your chairs so you can read it. I'm gonna get her to go over it real quick, and so everybody has a base, and then we'll get Jennifer back up here.
Hi guys, I think everybody here knows me, but my name is Elizabeth Sotomero. I am an elected delegate from Faulkner County Republican Committee to the state convention. I'm also a citizen journalist, so I like to think I know what I'm doing. The one side of your handout here is kind of a high-level summary of the general things that happened at the convention. And I want to make it clear that, of course, we did elect Ms. Jennifer as our temporary and our permanent chair. We elected Jennifer Hopper of Lonoke County as our permanent convention secretary. We'll talk some more about minutes of that after a little while. She does have a full-time job, and she is working on those videos, and anyone who knows me, you may know that I used to do word-for-word transcription of the Faulkner County Quorum Court, and I will tell you that an hour-long meeting takes 3 to 4 hours just to find out what was said. So she's got a 10-hour video to work on, so be patient. We also, at that convention, we did approve a flexible convention agenda, which allowed Jennifer to arrange the different activities in a way that made more sense. We certified and ratified 2 individuals as our national committee man and committee woman. That would be Eddie Arnold and State Representative Mindy McAlinden. And also former RPA Chair Doyle Webb will serve as well as those 2 people on the RNC National Committee from Arkansas. That's part of the formal business that the convention does. We also ratified the state's Republican Party primary candidates before the November election, also a routine thing that has to happen. The party is responsible, folks, for primaries and everything that has to do with that. That's when we get our candidates, obviously, so we have work to do there. We also ratified our state's elected RNC delegates and alternates. Of course, that activity is July 13th in Milwaukee. Gosh, we have, what, 25, 35 people going from Arkansas. We did several resolutions and several platforms and rules changes. That's the back of the page. Most of you are pretty familiar with most of this. For those of you who might have seen a handout from Conduit News, this is straight off of that. I had to retype it to fit on one page. So, what we had was, there were 4 items in the platform that were approved by the platform committee, put out ahead of time, and were included. Very high level, language that's anti-ESG. Everybody knows ESG, right? There was language that's anti-globalism. That would be your World Economic Forum, the World Health Forum, all that stuff having to do with that. We put in there that the judicial races will be partisan from now on. You're going to know those candidates, whether they're Republican or not. And then also there was language in there, of course, about Roe v. Wade that had to be cleaned up because now there's the Dobbs decision. So that was just a language switch out. Then there were things that were supported and submitted appropriately and timely that were not distributed that we voted into place at the convention from the floor. So one of those platform amendments was medical and economic freedom. This would be no medical mandates, individual medical rights, that sort of thing, and some things having to do with economic freedom. Something I am very fond of, a platform amendment that says we will support the original 1967 Freedom of Information Act. That is before the governor and the legislature altered it last fall. And these things are approved in the platform. We also did election security, supporting election security and hand-verified paper ballots. For those who may not know, the RNC at a national level has that in their platform. We approved a resolution, and this is where RPA-appointed committee members cannot be lobbyists, they cannot be members of the General Assembly, they cannot be the staff of constitutional elected officers, or political consultants. Now that's a resolution, but I think it clearly lays out how we feel about that. Then we get into numerous rules. The first one that so many people are excited about, and I sure am, closed primaries. For those who may not know, We'll be giving out a lot of information about how to check your registration, how to make sure it's correct. The first time through, you'll be able to switch it right there on the spot if it's not what it needs to be. So don't worry, we'll get with you. We'll make sure you got everything you need to get that right. By the way, we also approved a separate resolution, I think it was, for a committee. It'll be chaired by Jennifer, that is to work with the the State Board of Election Commissioners to get this to happen mechanically. The mechanics of it. It does not require any other legislation or formal activity. We have done it. It is in place. We also passed a rules amendment that says if you're running in the Republican Party, you really have to be a Republican. You got to be a registered Republican. You got to be a member. Sorry, let me correct that. You do not have to be a member of your party. You do have to be a registered Republican voter. On the state committee, we did a rule that says Arkansas lawmakers are now ex officio non-voting members. The reason for this is in the RNC, national senators and representatives, congressmen, they don't have a vote at the RNC level, and the majority of states also are the same way. They do not have their state lawmakers as voting members of their state committee. So we're aligning with the majority of states and with the RNC on that one. On that state committee, we've also said that we are going to add 2 representatives from each county committee that will be elected at your county committee to ensure adequate representation at that level of we the people, the county committee members. We've eliminated paperwork for county elected officials. We've granted them automatic seats on that district committee. We added constables. But now, whatever number of those people you have in your county committee that go to the district, you will be electing the same number of seats from your county, from we the people. That's the district membership update. And next to the last, we said that Rules and Platform Resolution Committee members that are elected by the district committees now instead of being appointed. And committee chairs will be still appointed by the chairman of the party, that is Joseph Wood at this time. And last but not least, we did what we call equalization of endorsements. This has to do with county committees. Most of you who are officers and so forth, you know that you're not supposed to endorse in a primary. Well, we equalized that because we said we don't want the constitutional officers and federal officials to have that ability to endorse in state party executive committee elections. It gives them more authority than we the people. Real high level stuff, there are some links on the bottom of here for the Faulkner County Republican website that I would also, most of you already know, but if you don't know, you should for sure visit conduitnews.com. There's a huge amount of detailed information, all the instructions that you need. If you want to see the official new set of rules and platform for the state, the FaulknerCountyRepublicans.com website has those documents under rules on that website.
All right, thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Go ahead and come up, Jennifer. We're going to get started. I'm actually going to leave it off. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. And I'm sure we're going to get lots of questions on the closed primary issue. Okay. But just to put everything to rest, the Republican primaries are actually closed. That's a fact now, right?
It is a fact, and that is under our own state law. So if you look under Title VII, I think it's 71103, it specifically says that the parties have the authority to close or determine who will vote in their primaries. Now, of course, I'm summarizing, I'm not quoting it word for word, but yes, the party has the final authority on that issue. Now, if I may, I just kind of want to jump back to one other thing real quick. So, first of all, Elizabeth is incredible. She has been absolutely amazing with getting us to where we are today. She does phenomenal research, incredible writing, and she's just been wildly instrumental in keeping people informed and and she's part of the glue that holds us all together. So I just want to thank you for what you've done. to clarify one thing, because there were two submissions regarding the makeup of the state committee. And one was that all the elected officials would be ex officio members, and then the second was that each county committee would be allowed to elect two additional individuals to represent that county at the state committee. The second one was not presented or passed, so it's just the first one, and that is just that all the elected officials are ex officio members, non-voting. So also we did not submit the equalization of endorsement. So that has not been touched yet. It was submitted. So both were timely submitted, and they're on Conduit's website, but just for some additional clarification, they were not decided on or passed at the convention.
And this was written and typed before the convention,
Okay.
or right after?
Yes, yes. And they are on Conduit's website and timely submitted, but I just wanted to clarify that. So do you have any other questions for
Yeah,
me?
no, actually, we're gonna go to Mr. Hughes. Where's Mr. Hughes? Go ahead, Mr. Hughes, have a question.
Well,
Yes, sir.
let's follow up with that. Okay, can those be brought up when the convention reconvenes as new business?
Can they be brought
Those
up?
proposals, can they be dealt with when the convention reconvenes?
If the convention is reconvened, a proper motion could be made from the floor. So, does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, I've got some other behind-the-scenes questions,
okay.
and I've learned even more tonight.
Be loud.
Did the convention leadership, as opposed to the RPA leadership, receive instructions to vacate from Embassy Suites? Did that come from Embassy Suites staff, management, or via RPA membership?
Okay,
Or leadership?
did everyone hear his question? No, okay.
Okay.
So, he asked if the notice to vacate by Embassy Suites
Numerous times, yeah.
was the one that was given to us at the convention. Was it given to us by the RPA staff, or, so is it by or to?
Well, who
Who
conveyed
gave
it
it?
to the convention? Was
Okay.
it RPA leadership, or was it Embassy Suites? Or we
Okay.
were told that Embassy Suites?
Okay, how about this? I'll just tell you exactly what happened from my perspective,
Okay.
okay? This is what I experienced. So while I was up there, Seth came up at one point and he said, we're gonna have to leave. We were a little bit past 4 at that point. He said, we're gonna have to leave. This was just scheduled until 4, and we have to be out by 5. That is what our contract says. And then I said, okay, but we had a lot going on, so I didn't wrap it up right then. Then the Embassy Suites lady came in and she said the same thing, you're gonna have to leave. That's when I called my husband up and I said, they're telling us we need to leave, but will you please handle this for me? And so that is when he told, now this is where he tells me what happened. He said he offered to pay, to extend the contract so that we could stay in that room. Now, while I did have the other room reserved, it obviously was not as big as the room that we were in, and I was concerned, about people being comfortable and all that. So he left, and I think, if I remember correctly, he and Seth and the lady left. They came back at one point, but was like, no, like, you really need to get out. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to move things along. And that was just one of the many conversations that were going on up there, you probably saw. And so at one point, now this is what Sarah Dunklin told me, who, as you saw, she was up there. Seth said that he would extend the contract. She said she heard that. I did not hear that. But she heard that. They went outside. There was a conversation between Seth and the lady, the Embassy Suites representative, and shortly thereafter, she came back in and said, no, you have to leave. And my husband said this about around the same time. He said, you have to leave. There is another event the next day. And she said, we can't get a hold of the, I guess the sales manager that was over taking care of the room. So she couldn't get a hold of her to confirm whether or not we could stay, but nonetheless, they had a meeting the next day, so we had to get out. So that was the information that I personally heard. Now, of course, exactly when it happened, I can't tell you all that. There was a lot being thrown at me up there. You all saw that, or most of you saw that. But that is basically the gist of the conversation. And then at one point, I think around 6, right as we did leave, that's when I did see some police officers coming in. They started shutting off the lights at the back, and I was like, okay, now they're serious. I'll push this as long as I can. I will tell you, in my mind, I was thinking, do I have everybody go to the room that we reserved? Do I take you guys out to the parking lot? I knew our people, people were committed, so I was trying to figure out in my mind, where could we go? And so that's why I was pushing it as long as I could. But that's what happened, and then praise God, we had enough room at the second meeting room, and everybody seemed pretty comfortable. I know it was a little chaotic, so I appreciate all of your grace and understanding with that, and everybody willing to work together to get chairs out. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I got one more.
Okay.
Okay. Because of all the things that we learned before and after, during, okay, did the RPA rent the entire convention center so that you couldn't rent a room, for example? And did they rent it for only 4 hours, or 5, or 6, or 2 days? Okay, and if so, I would say that's malfeasance of funds of the RPA, because they spent more money than was needed, and what they did was to severely restrict the convention.
Amen. That's
So
right.
I have absolutely no idea how long they rented it for, what rooms they rented. I have no idea. I can only tell you about the conversations that I had with Embassy Suites representative when I called to get a room. I called her, I identified myself as the chair of the 2nd Congressional District, gave her the information, had a pleasant exchange, and then she said, okay, well, I'm going to have to call the RPA because there are certain groups that they don't want near them, but I'm sure you're fine because you're a Republican. And I was like, okay, it's about to get interesting. that was all I said. I just said, That's all I said, so she called me back maybe about an hour later, and she offered me the room that we had, which of course was not in the convention center, it was in Embassy Suites. And I said, is there anything closer, because we have some people with mobility issues? And she said, no. There's nothing closer. All those rooms that would accommodate you, which were the ones all along the side. You guys probably saw there was one other event going on that I saw, and that based on my conversations with other people. There was one event, it was a kiddies ninja class, I think, going on again. Okay, so she said that all those rooms were booked. So, as you guys saw, I didn't see any events going on in them.
That day or the next?
Yes, and she did say that the one that's not booked was the other grand ballroom, but it was too big for us. And yes, at the time I was hoping I wasn't going to need to book another grand ballroom. So I didn't do that. I was hoping it would be, the room that we had would be sufficient. So that is what she told me. Now, she also said that it was going to be blocked. And I said, well, why are you blocking that? Is there construction? What is going on? And she said, no, there is a ticketed event going on in the convention center, and they want that breezeway blocked. Well, the only events that I saw, again, this is what I saw, were our convention and the kiddies ninja class. And I don't think the kiddie ninja class was in high demand. Could be wrong. Maybe it's really popular. But anyways, that is why it was blocked off. It was at somebody's request. She did say that.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm going to ask you to expand, because you came on the show with Dave and I, and you expanded a little bit. So just real quick, the event that they said that they had scheduled the next morning,
Oh, yes.
talk about when you got up the next morning.
So my family and I stayed at Embassy Suites, and I was curious, just in light of everything that had happened, I was curious if there really was an event. So we had breakfast about 7:30, and at 8 I walked over, and the doors, everything was shut down. We did get in, but nothing had been moved. It had not been cleaned. I have pictures. There were still crumbs and stuff on the floor. It had clearly not been set up for an event. Went back at 2:30. I have family up in the area, so we went, had lunch with them, and I went back to check one more time, and again, the same condition. Nothing had been moved, nothing cleaned, changed. The bathrooms were awful. So I just thought, man, they must have like a super crew if they're going to have a 6 p.m. event.
I went on Monday, and they still were just starting to clean up on Monday.
Okay,
So they
well,
still hadn't had an event.
Well, there you go.
But we're gonna come to you, but I promise, where's Jackie Martin? Go ahead, Miss Martin, stand up if you don't mind, because I know Jackie had a question, and then we'll come back.
My question is mainly, you said if the convention is reconvened. I want to know what the next step is.
Did everybody hear? She said if the convention is reconvened.
No, if, she said if, but what
Right.
if it's not?
If it's not, then you want to know the next step.
What's the next?
Okay.
Okay, there are a lot of things that are going on right now. I know it looks like there's not, but I promise you there are. As far as whether or not it's reconvened, my perspective is that that is going to be up to the RPA and other individuals within the party. If they absolutely dig in their heels and refuse to close our primaries and execute the wishes of the convention body, we will then, in my opinion, be forced to reconvene and deal with that appropriately. Absent being forced into that, I am not anticipating reconvening that meeting. Now, if you look at Robert's Rules of Order 8.6, it says that reconvene and recess are often used interchangeably, and especially in light of a convention, sometimes that it is used, it recesses, but ultimately ends up being adjourned, just because of the colloquialism, etc. So if we don't reconvene, then I think it would just be deemed to be adjourned. But
our rules don't say that.
our rules don't, they're silent. And it gives us under Article 1, Section 1L, it gives us options. And so we can recess is allowed, adjournment is allowed, and adjournment sine die. And I think the fact that it gives us 3 distinct options, there's adjournment and adjournment sine die, I mean, we could have done any of those, but we chose to recess. Yes.
Is that good?
Yes, does that answer your question?
County committees are not, our Faulkner County Committee, if I remember correctly, when we had our convention in March, we did recess, we did not adjourn, and no one has said a word about adjourning or reconvening.
So I think, just for those of you who might not know why we're talking about adjournment and recess and things like that, just to shed some light. So we recessed the convention. And now those who are not happy with what was done are making an issue of it. They're saying, well, you need to adjourn. That is not true. We do not need to adjourn. Again, you can read Robert's Rules of Order 8.6 in our own rules, Article 1, Section 1, subsection L, and it talks about the options. And we chose one of those options. Now, why they want us to adjourn is because with the adjournment, it cuts off the convention's authority. And of course, as you can see, the big struggle here is between the people and those who are in established power. And so it is a way to just make sure that the party who swore, most of you were there on August 18th, who swore to uphold our rules and to do what is in the best interest of the Republican Party, they swore that they would fulfill their duties. We're just going to make sure that they in fact do. So,
Follow-up question.
yes.
If I understand the RPA rules correctly, which I've been reading and studying these rules for 15 years, the state committee operates under the authority of the convention. They can't do anything outside of what the convention has voted to do. So if they're going to force us to adjourn, that's outside of the rules, that's outside of the convention rules that we adopted in that convention, which was Article 1, Section, I believe it was Section 6. Isn't that right, Margo?
Yeah.
Section 6, all of those rules that outline how a state convention is to be conducted, which they broke, okay? They broke those rules. So I'm just wondering what can be done to make them acknowledge that the work that we did at the state convention is their authority to do what we say they have to do. That's my question.
Yes, that's huge.
Let me jump in here real quick and say, when you do stand up, because we only have one microphone, try to be as loud as you can.
I don't
Okay,
have
that's all.
that problem.
No,
And I'll repeat, so she is asking, what can we do, the convention body do, to make sure that what was done on June 8th is implemented by the RPA? That is her question. You know, I would just encourage every one of you to have those conversations with the RPA staff, specifically Joe Wood and Seth Mays. Let them know what you think. And I mean, you're all so smart and articulate, and you're fully capable of doing that. So I would send them an email or give them a call, and let them know that you're excited about what was done and you're looking forward to seeing those changes implemented, and ask when you can expect to see them implemented, see the rules published, etc.
Keep showing up.
Yeah, keep showing up, absolutely.
And go ahead and say, Simone, but I want, when you stand up, go ahead and say your name and what county you're from, if you don't mind.
Simone Snyder from Pulaski County. My question is there anything like special sessions or something else we should be looking into to make sure that nothing is thrown in? You know, because there is a struggle, and it's obvious, so kind of the powers that want to be the powers that be, or retain the powers. And is there any way we can keep an eye on things? What should we be looking for? Who should we be watching?
Okay, great question. So her question was, what should we be looking for next? Who should we be watching? She specifically mentioned special sessions. I always think a red flag should go up when there's a special session. You should just be watching very closely to see what is submitted and what is being done and the real reason why it was called. So I would encourage everybody, I mean, always be diligent, always be watching. I know there's a new platform out. Mark Brandon can tell you more about it. It's AI, or My Constituents. That's a way that you can go through the bills very quickly to see what they're dealing with. That's a good way to deal with it, or to monitor what's going on. So I will tell you about a conversation I had with John Thurston's office. He's one of his individuals. Sorry, you guys tell me if I need to get louder. But somebody in his office told me that the Secretary of State and the AG recently met. I really thought he said somebody from the RPA, but when I asked Joe Wood about it, he said no, he hadn't been there. So what he said was that the AG's office, the Secretary of State met, and that they decided they do in fact need additional legislation. I disagree with that, but that is their position. And he said not regarding whether or not the party has the authority to close the primaries, but he said that the counties are going to need guidance as to how to implement this change. I disagree. The law is really clear. The State Board of Election Commission can do that. They can pass rules and that governs that. It doesn't have to be that complicated. I just think that is more of our legislators and individuals who don't like the changes trying to control and legislate. So I disagree, but that is their decision as of right now.
All right, Mr. Jack?
Jack's out of Laurel, Faulkner County. I don't know much about the rules. I don't read them. But I know common sense. And I know that you were elected as the chair of the RPA for the duration of that meeting, which means Joe Wood isn't the chair. You are, number one. No, the convention was where the business of the RPA was being done. The convention hasn't been ended, therefore those elected to that convention are still in those positions. You can't have two chairs of the RPA, number one. Number two, isn't it true that all the business that you transacted only takes effect when the convention ends?
No. Okay, but to answer your first question, the convention body does vote on a temporary and a permanent chair for the convention itself. And so I was the chair and the chair for the convention. If we reconvene, then yes, I will be the chair for the duration of that meeting. But Mr. Wood is the chairman of the RPA and of the executive committee. So, yes, so he has been, he was even during the convention, he is the chair of the RPA, I'm the chair of the convention. So they are two distinct bodies. Your other question is, oh, no, they don't. So, and I'll give you a few examples. Even under Robert's rules, when a motion is passed, it is effective immediately. There is some misinformation going around, and I do believe that it is designed specifically to confuse people, because, I mean, that's just what the other side does. I mean, if people are confused, then people just choose not to act at all out of fear that they're going to act in the wrong way. So, no, they went into effect immediately, and I'll give you an example. So for example, if you look at, I don't know if you're like me and save every single email and every single text, but you can go back and look at emails that were sent by Seth Mays and Joe Witt has their signatures on it, and they specifically suggested that we, for all the counties to recess their county conventions. Now, if they did not believe that the actions taken during the convention prior to recess were not effective until adjournment, then there's no way that those counties who followed their suggestions could have submitted their state delegate list, because they wouldn't have gone into effect.
But last year, our last convention, through another use of BS rules, they kept Pulaski County from even sitting.
They just broke a bunch of rules. I mean, they did it this time, they did it last time.
What I'm saying is I don't trust them.
Okay. And I think that's fair.
We follow the rules.
Yes, and when there is one broken, then we will acknowledge it and we'll fix it. You know, nobody's perfect, and the rules, they're voluminous. I mean, you can look at, I have my rule book, it's that white one, and then Robert's rules on top of it. You know, nobody's going to be able to know exactly what should be done in every situation, every time. We do the best that we can, but I think what is important is to be constantly diligent, review the sections that are relevant to any upcoming meeting, and then if there is a mistake made, to acknowledge it and then do your best to correct it as soon as possible. And I think that's what a leader should do. So, did I answer your question? You're welcome. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Gary Don Beck, Saline County. I would like to know the remedy of the fact that this gentleman brought up the money that was spent, that was wasted for our committees and kicked us out of the building. Who is the person that is responsible for renting that building? I hear RPA. Who is the RPA then? Is it not us? If it's not us, who are we paying in the RPA to get that job done? And if they didn't do their job, we want to know how to get the remedies from them or sue them personally for my civil rights being kicked out of that room.
Okay, so there are quite a few questions or issues that I'm hearing there. So first of all, who booked the room? Well, first of all, let me say this. I don't know how much they spent on that room. I don't know if they booked it for the entire weekend. It wouldn't surprise me. Just based on what I saw, what we discussed, it would not surprise me if they booked up most of those rooms. But I have no proof of that. So I don't know.
Who is the person that is responsible for booking and paying for those rooms?
That I also don't know. I think Seth Mays was probably involved in that. He really does a lot in the party and helped prepare the meeting, but I don't know that for a fact either. Typically, under Robert's rules, you would have a programs committee, and they are the ones charged with setting it up. There was not a programs committee appointed in this. There was a somewhat similarly named group, but I don't know that they actually fulfilled their duties under Robert's rules, kind of like the credentials committee, or if it was just a formality. I do not know.
Who's the top dog that gets paid by the RPA?
Actually, I think Seth gets paid more than Joe. Well, I don't know that for a fact. I know Seth is salaried, and Joe has a salary, but he gets commission on top of it. I don't know what his final paycheck looks like.
It sounds like somebody needs to be sued. Is what I'm saying.
Let me jump in there and let's try to help out just a little bit. What we have to understand is that while you're a member of the Republican Party of Arkansas, it doesn't mean that you can get all the records from them, correct?
That's right.
Okay, it's not like a government entity where you can use the Freedom of Information Act to get it.
Unfortunately.
So Mr. Hewitt said, hey, can we get that contract? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I ask Joseph Wood for the contract to that convention center, I can pretty much tell you he's gonna tell me no, and I don't really have a legal recourse to get it, right?
Right.
Okay, so the thing, what Jennifer's trying to reiterate is when she's trying to answer those questions is understand this. She's a convention chair and they won't tell her anything right now. And so it's hard to do, and I would just jump in and say this, I highly recommend every one of you, if you've got those questions, to email Joseph Wood and Seth. And the more they get, the more pressure there will be, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Absolutely.
He's been waiting, so, okay, cool.
My name's Chris Williams, Pulaski County, is just so there is no misconceptions about if something was screwy, not only what this young lady had said, I wasn't a delegate, so I did a lot of smoking cigarettes and talking to people. Is that I was outside at one point in time near the end of this, talking to a young fella that worked for, the hotel, is he was from El Salvador. And while I'm standing there, you had a young man come out in like a yellow, it was very bright, I don't know if it was yellow or peach, I don't know what you would call it. But it was a suit. He came out asking about, hey, where do I need to go to shut these lights off? And the El Salvadorian guy said, well, the lights are back there, just joking with him, and he's like, so I need to go back there and I can go back and turn the lights off. And the guy said, no. And he walked off, and then another suit came out. And this suit said to the guy, who do I need to talk to get these people out of here? And then that person told him, well, it's not me, you need to go up there, probably talk to someone up here. That person left, and about 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour later, Simone came out and told me, hey, we gotta go, and go up to the other room. So,
And the police were there.
something screwy went on, I don't know what it was, but that's two separate individuals that definitely didn't look like any of you. They came out and asked, who do I need to talk to do something about getting these people out of here?
It's true, the fire marshal was called. You guys probably know that, I've talked about that. So just as we got settled into the second room, then the fire marshal showed up. Of course, Clay comes back up to me again. He's like, fire marshal's here, what are the numbers? And I said, if we had just counted for quorum, thank God. And I directed him to the lady that helped count. I said, she has the numbers, and so Clay got them to the police officer, and we were under capacity, and they left. But there was a lot going on, a whole lot. So if you were wondering why I was talking to so many people, those were some of the conversations.
Jackie had something else, and then we'll get Elizabeth.
I just want an answer to this question. Is the state chair position elected or appointed?
Well, if you attended the Cleveland County dinner on Tuesday, Governor Mike Huckabee said that Joseph Wood was appointed.
Yes.
But
they are not. They are elected according to
Elected.
RPA rules.
Yes.
And I want that clarified.
Yeah, let's let Jennifer clarify this. Go ahead.
Yes, it is an elected position. Actually, we'll be having another election, I think, in
Well,
December.
if they don't mind these rules, why would they follow the rules in December? I'm sorry. I mean, we need to get this straight now. I'm sorry.
I think we do need
Now,
to.
Margot, we've actually got an expert back here.
Yeah.
So Margot, you want to chime in on this?
I just, it's a general comment that applies really well to this question, and, before the convention, I told my husband, this is an experiment in whether it is possible to force the powers that be to follow the rules if you show up with sufficient numbers. And it turned out that the answer was yes. And I just want to keep reminding you all that the numbers are the big thing. If you think that we need to ask them a question, do it, right? That if they get 60 or 300 emails from different people all saying, where's my new copy of the rules? Where's my new copy of the platform? Keep talking to them, keep being the numbers. If they know how many people are watching them, we proved that you actually can make them follow the rules, but one or two or three or four people can't do it no matter who they are. It's very easy when you're, in a power position to ignore a handful of people.
That's an excellent point. And
It is.
Elizabeth, did you have something you wanted to?
Gone now.
Okay, but Lori has a question.
Yeah, Laura, go right ahead.
Okay, so mine is more a comment related to this, and that is that Robert's Rules is very clear. You could probably back me up on this. Very clear that when there is a vote like this, it takes an immediate effect. Okay, so we had someone come to our meeting talking about the minutes. The minutes, they haven't given the minutes to convention to delegates ever. Ever.
That's right.
We've never been given the minutes to a convention. the minutes are irrelevant in terms of whether what we passed is in effect. It became in effect that day, according to Robert's rules. So people can pretend at the RPA that this didn't happen. They cannot talk about it, but the fact of the matter is that what we voted on, according to Robert's rules, went in effect the minute we voted on it and the minute that it passed. So don't let that fool you.
Yes, I think that's a great point, and just to expound even further, when you have your elections, your county committee elections, and you elect your new executive board, so think about your chair. When he is elected, does he wait until the next meeting after the minutes are approved to take over, to start acting as the chair? No, he becomes the chair upon the election. So again, please don't be fooled or confused. That's just a tactic that is often used. Continue, keep your eyes forward. You know what happened. Most of you were there, and if you weren't, you can watch it online. I mean, it's everywhere. So you can certainly learn. And I love what Margot said. I mean, a handful of people cannot accomplish what we've been accomplishing. It's because we're all working together. And that is how our founding fathers intended this to be. For all of us to come together and to problem solve together. So yes, I love what she said, and I encourage you to do the same thing. If you have a question or if you have a comment, don't keep it to yourself. Call Joe Wood, call whoever, call me if you have a question that you think I can answer. But call and get your answer because you deserve it. You're a member of this Republican Party.
Yes, sir, Mike. Go ahead, buddy.
I'm Mike Masuko from Pulaski County. What I'm hearing here is this. Robert's rules, by the way, and the rules of the Republican Party are set up to give you decorum and to be followed by the votes. So we did that. We acted in decorum, we passed what we wanted, and for some reason, the other side is supposed to, okay, let's enact these things. So the enforcement or the inaction is not happening. And we've been polite about it, and we will be, how long has it been since the meeting? 3 weeks? Okay, we are being ignored. So, I suggest, and we tried, several counties have done it, is do your resolutions. I never was a big fan of resolutions because they don't have an impact. We tried to pass ours in Pulaski County, and then, people stood up and casted unreasonable doubt that we were doing the right thing, as they discussed. We took out some of the language that was, I'll say, aggressive towards the other side. But still, hey, we did this, and we expect you to execute what we did. And we're gonna run it again, and I think every county should do that. In addition, along what Margot said, I'm telling you, we just need to just mass email them and drive them crazy and let them know. Also, she's getting the press out on Dave Ellswick's show, Conduit, which is good. But I've heard people say, well, go on Conduit. There are people who are, well, who's Conduit? I don't know if they're lying or not. But eventually this is gonna get out to the press. And I can't wait till that happens. And where I live is, why don't we call the Arkansas Times? I read it every day because that lets me know what the competition's up to. I also go to the Democrat committee in Pulaski, find out and read their minutes to find out what they're up to. But you give them something like that, they'll love to publish all that stuff about the Republican Party. And I think that's what wakes them up. I'm sorry it's come to this, but we have followed the decorum issues outlined by Robert's rules as well as our rules, and we're following them. They're not.
Right.
So we're gonna have to force it in there. We've been polite and nice up until now. She's been very eloquent on Dave Ellswick explaining things, and so has Jimmy, and they're not listening. So she's got a trail of emails, great for the paper trail. If it comes down to that, here's all the stuff, no response. We're being ignored, folks. So there is strength in numbers. And I was hoping we'd have more from our county here because a lot of people just didn't understand what we did and accomplished at that meeting. And think about it, we rented a bus to get our people up there. And then we had people from the other side in our county committee questioning, well, did you take people to dinner? Did you do this? No, we got a bus to get everybody up there and back, so they're trying to, and we voted on that. So we did everything according to the rules laid out. So now it's time, we're gonna have, it's strength in numbers, and I don't wanna hear this, well, you know, we shouldn't make them mad. Are they making you mad?
They're already mad. Yeah, I mean, it's worse.
Hey, we are the ones that organize.
Yes.
And there's only three things we need to be, you know, surrounding ourselves around. The platform, the principles, and the rules of the game.
Absolutely.
And anything else we don't agree on, it doesn't matter. When we come into these meetings, those three things, now we gotta force it on them. They don't like it, because we moved their cheese. Remember the old book, who moved my cheese? We just moved their cheese. And we gotta stick together. I don't wanna hear anyone, no, I don't wanna make them mad. What are they gonna do?
Right.
They've already made us mad.
That's right.
So, I think we all need to, you know, the county committees all need to get the resolutions. I mean, at least it shows unity, number one. And then I'm for that. Let's inundate that email box with, hey, what's going on? When's it being implemented? They're gonna have to do something. And then, gee, if I happen to drop a dime over there at Arkansas Times and say, hey, you know, we're having a little problem over here. Which, by the way, just for the record, I was an election commissioner in Pulaski County, and I went to Governor Sanders' rally in Jacksonville just to hear them out. They had all our elected officials there. I stood in the back next to Tom Cotton's parents. I never held a sign. I never gave out hamburgers. I didn't park cars. I didn't even help old ladies up ramps. Do you know somebody dropped a dime from the Republican Party on me as an election commissioner being at that event, and that's against the rules. But I read the rules. As long as I don't participate, I can go. But that's what they did to me, because they saw, uh-oh, this guy really isn't one of us. And now, you know, we're continuing on. So that's what they do. I've since left the commission, because I can do more damage being away from there. Anyway, folks, I just hope everybody gets on that same board. I mean, some people may not want to do that, but I believe we got more. We're going to have to force this issue politely, do it in writing, and keep your emails. Thank you.
Well said. I do want to say one thing to Mike's point about the media. There has been media coverage on it, but it's been full of false narratives.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you that today Robert Steinbuck wrote an article on this that I would say go read. The only problem about it coming out this morning, it's the day after the debate. And so nobody was really reading the paper this morning, it's all about debate. So I would encourage you to read that. That's a positive article on this, and that's full of factual information, not misinformation. But to Mike's point, yeah, there's been a lot of, in the media, in the paper, there's been a lot of misinformation.
Well, one other thing along that point. The RPA puts out a newsletter. I don't know if y'all get it, but you can go to their webpage and they got the history of them. Do you know that they didn't do one for 2 weeks during when we had the convention? Now, when we had the state committee meeting, boy, that was published in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette had an article that they sent me to, and I went to, and it was the bottom paragraph 9, where they said, well, you know, they didn't get that rule passed that says 2/3 versus the majority. See, they got buried. Now, there hasn't been anything in the RPA newsletter about the convention, not a peep. Which that tells me this thing didn't happen in their eyes.
Right.
Jimmy,
I just want to make,
I've been holding for her. Go ahead and stand up. Okay.
hi, I just want to.
You gotta be loud.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment related to the two people who talked before me. Yes, I agree we have to get organized, and if we have any person in charge of communication, for example, if many of us have Facebook, but Facebook, you have to understand, now we are in the presidential campaign, and they are very, very much hard in censoring whatever we post. We need to go on Twitter. We need to open Twitter account. And we need to share our account so we can make a force there. Why? Because politicians people start talking bad things about them in Twitter. For them, it's very important how popular they are in Twitter. So, that is something we can do. And we just, if we receive the email or the tweet or the message of any of our group, well, we need to go, today we're gonna tweet, and let's see, 10 o'clock, and 100 people go over that politician or member of our party, which are doing wrong thing. I tell you what, they're really gonna be concerned about it. I mean, that is very popular. I know in South America, that is what they do. They do this to politicians many of the politicians in the United States, at least in Washington, they pay very much attention. So that is very important tool. Why? Because Elon Musk never gonna censor what we post. As longer, follow the rule. Now, I just want to make a comment. I feel so sorry we need to have this meeting. And I'm gonna say why. Because our party is supposed to be the honest people.
Right.
We're supposed to represent the values of our nation. And to have this type of meeting, because we have a bunch of people who are corrupt,
Yep.
I feel so much concerned. Why? Because that is the way how the left infiltrate in our life.
That's right.
So we need to be very aware of that, be careful, and do what we're doing, get together. And just like, when I was 16 years old, when the Communist Party there was making whatever in my country, we just have poster and glue. And that was the way we was doing, we was going out in the street to fight for our right and propaganda. Today now we have all those three networks and we can use it. And the more important network today is make your account with Truth Social, which is President Trump network, and also Twitter. So if we can have, for example, in our party, in our group, somebody who's gonna be in charge of that communication, they can send us email with their, what is gonna be the Twitter we need to follow, and through social, and then we get organized. So from there, we all start following each other, and we make a bunch of power. I can guarantee you.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
Good idea.
I was just wondering, we're gonna have
Yeah.
Elizabeth from Faulkner County. We're gonna have other district and other meetings coming up pretty soon. Wouldn't it be a good idea if we all go back to our county committees and say, let's get our people elected and get certain things in order that these rules ask for?
Yes, you can go ahead and do that. And yes, I would encourage you to go ahead and do that, because those rules went into effect, so I would start doing that. And, yes, be preparing for a district committee meeting coming up very soon.
Jennifer, let me do this. It's an important point by Elizabeth in what you're saying there. But for the folks sitting out here that don't know necessarily maybe the rules and how to approach a county chair, if you were gonna approach a county chair with this and wanna talk to your county chair, how should the folks go about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would approach your county chair, tell them that, the rule was just passed. I would point it, direct them to it. Now, I will tell you that I sent out, a copy of the 2024-2026 rules and platform that were with the updates that we made on June 8th. So all the chairmen have them. And so you can say, I know you received it from Jennifer Lancaster, and say in that, we are allowed to elect so many people, to the district committee, or, whatever it is you're wanting to do. And say, under that rule, I would like to have that put on the next agenda on the next meeting's agenda. And I would do this at least 10 days in advance. I usually like to have a little bit of notice. That way they can't say no because I didn't have notice. Give them that heads up, ask that it be put on the agenda, and then go ahead and get your people lined up to run.
If you go to your county chair and you explain this, and I'm not getting on any county chair, but if you kind of run into a roadblock and they're going, we're not getting into that, what right do you have at a meeting when it comes to new business or something? What can you do at the meeting?
Make a motion, I would wait until new business, and I would, make a motion, you know, you probably wanna think through, depending on your county chairman, how you wanna handle that, whether you wanna start out with a point of information, you know, oh, does the body know, or does the chairman know that this happened? You know, get them to acknowledge, and then say, in light of that, I move that we go ahead and elect those individuals, as we spoke about 2 weeks ago. I told you that I wished for this to be on the agenda, you declined, so in light of that, I'm now making a motion today that we elect 3 people, 2 people, whatever.
Margot, can you kind of chime in on that? Because this is the Robert Rule expert right here. You know, second part.
The ordinary right of an assembly, and this is in Robert's rules, the ordinary right is to consider without limitation any number of motions from the floor. So don't let anybody tell you that you cannot propose to elect people to those vacant positions. You can definitely make that motion. If you don't have a majority of the people in the room on your side, then you may not get to actually hold those elections, but you can definitely move to do that at any time.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go Mr. Jack, then we're gonna go Mr. Hughes.
Just pretend that I'm a slightly smaller, better looking Mike Mizuko. What Mike was talking about the rules, about what we passed, about what we did. I'm gonna talk just for a moment about the other side of that coin. There are a lot of people throughout the state who worked for the Republican Party for years. They got elected. They got all the perks of being elected, like not showing up for meetings and nobody worrying about it. All the other stuff they got to do because they were elected. You know, show up when something's going on, throw their weight up on the table, and then leave for another 6 months. And now they can't do that anymore. See, 'cause they got their voting member taken away from them. Now they're just people. Well, I can understand them feeling that way. Any one of us would if we felt someone who'd taken something that we earned or we had coming to us away. But the rules are the rules. And when they pass rules, when the RPA passes rules that we don't like, and some of you have been around long enough, I know I have, to remember that when Gilbert, our esteemed ex-senator, decided that there weren't enough Republicans being elected, Gilbert was the one that brought up the nonpartisan rule. That came from right here in Conway, folks. Right? So sometimes you make rules and then you don't like them and later you complain about them. All I'm saying is that those people who worked for the party did work for the party. They worked hard for the party. Back at a time when you couldn't get this many people in a room for a Republican event with free hot dogs. And John Madholz remembers that. Because we were both around in those days. All I'm saying is don't be too hard on the guys that are elected and that are a little angry right now. Because they feel that you screwed them. And you did. But that's okay because that's the popular opinion. That's what we want to see happening. The same as a closed primaries. Because we don't want somebody else coming in and voting for the weakest candidate so they'll be able to get elected. That's common sense. But still, remember, they're human beings like you. And they feel bad when we do something that they don't think is in their best interest. So before you cut their throat, think about them for a minute. Cut their throat.
Newcastle, Faulkner County. Another item of new business for the convention when it reconvenes, okay, being optimistic, is an open audit of the RPA books. That will tell us everything we want to know about the convention and other things that we don't know about. Okay, and the other question is, have you looked into some manner of reconvening electronically through the network? Zoom may not accommodate it, but there may be a way to do that so that you don't have to deal with all the logistics.
No, I have not looked into, I'll be honest, I haven't looked into reconvening at all. And for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier, I have no intention of doing that unless we're forced to do it. As far as any motions, now that's not to say it's not going to happen, but anything that, I have heard some very good ideas, I'll put it this way. I've heard some very good ideas since we recessed the convention. And so I'm encouraging everybody to write them down, because in the event that we do have to reconvene, then maybe it is something that would be appropriate to bring up. But, you know, we also need to follow the rules of the convention and make sure that they are applied appropriately. It's not just gonna be a free-for-all like some might think. You know, we'll follow the rules.
I'm coming to you. Did you have something on the rules, Margot, you wanted to?
Something on this topic.
Why don't you let her?
Okay, hold on, because these guys have been waiting, okay? Let me get these guys, let's go here and here, and then we'll come back to Margot. Okay.
Ken Dolan, Faulkner County. I'm pretty new to this process. I just learned tonight that Mr. Wood, or Judge Wood, or however he's referred to, was elected and not appointed. Yeah, I was at.
Hang on, let it finish, and then Jennifer will address
I
it.
was at the convention. I was very offended by how that man attempted to conduct business right at the open. It was, I don't need to go into it, it's just I was very offended by it. Now, isn't there, I mean, if he's an elected person, isn't there some mechanism at the state level, going back to your comment, where an audit can be demanded, particularly if he's an elected person? For example, the Bureau of Legislative Audit. I mean, I don't know that that's the group that would come in and
No, it wouldn't.
look at it.
That's okay.
But is there some kind of a thing that could happen from the state looking down at how the RPA or anybody else is conducting their business, and say, I want to look at the books. I want to see, like Saline County said over here, I want to see who signed that contract. I want to see what the terms were, you know, that kind of thing.
I think it's a great question. Let's let Jennifer address it, okay?
So, first of all, welcome, and thank you for running to be a delegate. Very few people do that right out of the gate, so I'm glad that you stepped up to do that. And
I didn't say I was very smart.
Hey, we are all learning, and we're all learning together. And
Kicked out.
Can I interject something? This is the perfect time.
well, just
Well,
let.
let her finish, let her answer the question so we can get the answer, and then I've got to get him and Margot, and then I'll come back to you, Mike, okay?
And I might call on Margot here in a second. There is, within our rules, I do believe that there is a required audit that takes place, I think it's annually. Now, I'm trying to remember, Margot, do you remember off the top of your head? I think those individuals might be appointed, or there's a CPA, I think that they use. So it's all coordinated by the chair. You know, that's kind of how the system is set up, like throughout our entire government. Did I get that right? You guys, Margot is brilliant on parliamentary procedure.
Yes, now I'm not going to say I remember the exact details, but yes, there's a committee and a CPA, and they're, yes, selected by the people who are being audited. And there are rules about who is allowed access to the financial records, and Jennifer, I believe every member of the executive committee, which does include you and Sarah and maybe a couple of other friendlies, can get access to the financial records of the party at will, basically. But this is a thing that it kind of relates to this question about other business if we reconvene. But we don't actually need to reconvene the convention in order to do all of those things. So just think ahead a little bit, because if we're just a little bit patient, December we have another state committee meeting where we will no longer have all of those ex officio voting legislators, which means we should have roughly the same kind of representation of the people at the state committee, and we can conduct all of the same kinds of business. We can reduce the obscene filing fees, and we can get access to the financial records, and we can elect a new chair. And so all those things we can do in December at the state committee meeting. And if we don't have sufficient access to the financial records in our rules right now, we can have a rules change in December that gives us access to the financial records.
To your point, that was the whole point of passing that at the
That's
convention,
right.
to set that up, right? Okay, yes, sir, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, Jim Anglin, Pulaski County. Jennifer, did we not appoint a committee on how to implement the primary and what to do with those? And that committee comes back and reports to us in December? Is that not correct?
I believe it was
Did I agree with that?
January, or I actually don't remember off the top of my head if there was a specific date. I know it was discussed, I don't remember if it was adopted. Okay, Alice, they're saying by the end of the year, we're supposed to report back, okay. So, yes, it sounds like that is correct, and I am the chair of that committee, and I can go ahead and tell you what I've been doing so far.
Well, I'm just concerned that we got someone that's looking at the rules on how to implement a primary without them causing all kind of construction of keeping us from doing it.
Okay, so this is what I've done so far. I sent an email to the Secretary of State, and I told him that on June 8th, he already knew, of course, he tweeted about it, but I just sent it in a formal document that the body voted overwhelmingly to close the Republican primary, and I asked him to do so in a respectful and expeditious manner. And he shortly came back a few days later and said, did I have the authority? To which I replied, well, if you look at Article 1, Section 1, Subsection B, yes, the final authority in all party matters is the biennial convention of the Republican Party of Arkansas. So as the chair, yes, I believe I have authority there. 2, I was the elected chairman of the committee charged with overseeing the closing of the primaries on behalf of the convention. So yes, I would say that I have the authority to speak to you and notify you that, in fact, the Republican primaries are closed. And then I sent him some law to also back up that the party, because it's also in state law, that the party decides who votes in their primaries. So no matter how you look at it, no matter how you slice it, the party has the ultimate authority on this issue. So I sent that to him, followed up with him, and I will tell you, Robert Steinbuck's article is correct because I let him see all my emails. So then followed up and said, do you need anything else? And he said, no, we're processing it. I ended up calling his office on a completely separate matter, but I guess the individual that I spoke to was so used to, at that point, speaking about closing the primaries that he gave me his closed primary spiel. And I just listened because I'm like, oh, I'm kind of curious what they're saying. So I just listened. And then at the end, I asked a few questions, and that's when he said, well, the Secretary of State has met with the AG's office and members of he said a few interesting things. I think I said this on the radio, so I apologize if I'm repeating things you already know, but he said they met, he said, and they met because we need to know if the RPA really, if the Republican Party really wants to do this. And I said, well, why would you think they don't want to do this? He goes, oh, well, I don't know, I probably spoke out of turn, and I didn't mean that. So I was like, okay, that's still an interesting thing to say. And then he said that the AG and the Secretary of State's office do agree that there needs to be additional legislation, as I said earlier, not about whether or not the party can do it, but just to provide guidance to the counties. And I said, well, why wouldn't you let the state board election commissioners do that? That is their role. And he said, that's above my pay grade. So I said, okay, well, thank you, but this actually isn't why I'm calling, but I appreciate the information. I'm calling for this issue. And so got that. Now, to that point, though, the reason why I was calling the Secretary of State's office was because I wanted to make sure that the names of the electors had been sent into their office as required by law. So they had been. So this goes to a point that we spoke about earlier. So I have a certified copy of the names of the electors that we elected at the convention. If in fact nothing goes into effect, as the RPA is trying to argue, that nothing goes into effect until we adjourn, then they could not have submitted those names to the Secretary of State as final. So again, no matter how you slice it, none of this, it doesn't hold water. This just intended to confuse and delay, and please don't fall for it, okay? Now, another thing. I did send a red line version and a clean version of our RPA rules and RPA platform, the 2024-2026 version. I sent that to Joseph Wood and Seth Mays over a week ago now. I did ask for, confirmation that they got it, never got that. Followed up with text messages, never got a response. So I dropped by. I'm a little persistent. So I stopped by and Joe Wood was just not going to give me any information, none. And I said, I want to make sure that you got my emails. He's like, well, I get a lot of emails. And I said, well, I would like to know if you got these. I sent them over a week ago. And he said, well, I don't know, I get a lot of emails. But, I kept pushing. And he said, well, Seth's going to have to look at them very closely. And then when he's done, he'll send them to me for final approval. And I said, well, when will that be? He's like, I don't know. I'm very focused right now. So,
Yeah, we saw how focused he is.
So I said, so you can't give me a timeline. I'm getting a lot of questions and I'd like to be able to answer them. And he said, no, I can't give you a timeline. And I said, okay, well, regarding closing the primaries, I understand you were in a meeting with the Secretary of State, or somebody was in a meeting with the Secretary of State and the AG's office. He goes, I wasn't, I don't know anything about it. And I said, well, okay. I said, if there are any future meetings, I would like to be a part of it as the chair that was elected to oversee this. And he's like, I'm sure they'll contact you. And so I said, well, if you have any say in that, I would really appreciate you letting me know and allowing me to be a part of that. And he didn't commit to that either. Let me see what else. I think I talked to you immediately after.
You did.
What else am I missing? Am I forgetting anything
No,
else?
you just got brushed off.
Yes, I totally got
brushed off.
But there was no commitment on when they would publish the rules or the platform. Oh, another thing, Jennifer Hopper, who you elected to be your convention secretary, and I have both sent emails requesting the delegate list for the convention, because if we are to ever reconvene, we need that list. That has gone completely ignored. No responses to that either. So that's what we're getting right now.
She have a Facebook?
Does she?
She have a.
Yes, she has a
Well, we should go all together there and start texting, That is the way this thing works. Yes.
I gotta go Mike and then Frank and then we'll come to you, okay? And then, yeah, okay.
Mike Masuko, Pulaski County. I just want to let y'all know, especially you for the new gentleman, I was new once too. There's a word that got bandied about at previous meetings called, well, you folks just don't have the institutional knowledge.
That's a
Let me give you the definition of the institutional knowledge. It's the new platform, it's the revised principles, and it's the rule book, the new rules. That's your institutional knowledge. Read it. Robert's Rules is a tough read. We got people such as Margot, this young little gentleman up front here, Carson. He's a master at Robert's Rules. So you won't have to learn that. People will help you along. But that's the institutional knowledge
And
that
it's
you'll
the
need.
new buzzword. I'm hearing it all over national media now.
Yeah, institutional knowledge.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, we say jokingly on the show. Go ahead.
Frank Curtis, Saline County. I like what a lot of people are saying, that we need to kind of get together and, be strong and, state how we feel and go against all of this nonsense. But
Not to interrupt, but go ahead and state your title there too, so that everybody knows you're the chair of Saline County.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay,
Mhm.
go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, that's fine. So again, thinking about all of this that's been going on, the convention has clearly shown us something. We don't really need the RPA. Right? I mean, I've said from step one, let's get rid of these people. They're incompetent. The convention, what happened before the convention, during the convention, and after the convention, it's pitiful. If this was any type of a business, these people would be gone.
Be fired.
Right? And these RPA leadership, they're not people. They're not like us. They're not politicians. What are they? They're just getting in the way. So, I'm in the process of writing emails, but I'm also asking for their resignations. And I think we need to pursue that.
I got Miss Jackie and then we got Miss Flanders. So go ahead, Miss Jackie.
There is a procedure in the RPA's party rules about removing a state chair.
Yes, there is.
2/3 of the state committee vote to remove them, they are removed. So just want to throw that out there.
Perfect.
They're a hindrance.
But I have a question.
Sure.
So if county committees elect the new positions, representatives to the state committee that we passed, who's to say that Mr. Mays will recognize them as new members of the state committee? You know how that goes.
I think that is a very valid concern. Based on what we're seeing, I think we do need to be concerned about them just refusing to recognize the changes that were adopted. There are ways to force it, and we'll just see if it comes to that. Hopefully it won't.
Push comes to shove.
Push
Right.
comes to shove, yeah.
All right, I'm coming to you, let me get Ms. Flannery. No, and then we'll get some, come on, Ms. Flannery, go ahead.
My name is Sue Flannery, I'm from Garland County, and right now, when I went to the convention, I was astounded at how many grassroots people we have in the state. It's incredible, and right now, the grassroots holds the power in this state. We hold the power. Now, if we don't use that power, we're gonna lose it.
That's right.
That's right. We are gonna have to force them to follow the rules.
Yes.
And the only way we're gonna do that is constant emails, constant calls. Jennifer can make a plan, she can give it to Scott, she can give it to Angie, and get it out to us. But we have to be very organized, and we have to keep this fight going every day.
Exactly.
And that's how we win.
Well, we already witnessed it from Hot Springs Village Republican women.
Yeah, amen.
They
to
let
that.
it go, they let it go.
No, go ahead,
they
stand
let it
up,
go.
stand up, stand up.
Well,
You
you know,
have to do the mic. I'm not coming to any more meetings that don't have a mic.
All right, go ahead, sweetie, go ahead.
I'm Susan Anderson, Saline County,
Here you go, here you
Republican.
go.
You want to use the mic.
Susan Anderson, I'm from Saline County Republican Committee, and I was at Hot Springs Village Republican Women on the executive board, and that dissipated or whatever when we wanted paper balloting. But we went back, it got flipped. It got flipped with all the rules, with all of it. And they let it go, let it go, let it go. And we've got to go ahead and implement all of this, because now all the grassroots are out and the establishment is in, and they say all of these rules are not in effect. We don't know what we're talking about. And the word from Steve Lux was, you know, they're all these delegates or these new people, they don't have any institutional knowledge or whatever. And I was really put off by that. So haven't seen him since then to go ahead and ask him about that. But we need to implement this. Pardon me?
Announce his current status.
I don't know his current.
He's no longer a member of the Saline County Republican.
Oh, well, no wonder I didn't see his name on there. Yeah, no wonder he didn't say hi to me
All right,
either.
all
He
right,
was 3 feet
Simone's
away.
been waiting patiently, so we're gonna get Simone in here.
Question of the state chair about how you end up being nobody and then you end up being a Supreme Court judge, or you end up being nobody and you get put into a job because you need a job and somebody who's more suited for it.
Right.
All right, let's get Simone in here, she's been waiting patiently.
Basically, I have a few things to say about unity and about this idea that we somehow have to keep extending hands and not irritating these people, because yes, they have feelings, but we're not all in our feelings. We're not, we need to, and if we are, then we should have feelings of pride and patriotism, not of kissing the ring and being pleased.
That's right.
And one issue that I've heard brought up that really bothers me is fundraising. Someone brought up the issue of, we don't want to make these people mad because they help with some of our outreach committees. And so we have to know basically who's trying to pull strings from behind and find out, because these people aren't involved. At least in our county, we haven't seen French Hill, and we've invited them. Yes, someone actually proxied for him, imagine that, last week or so. But we've asked for our representatives, we've put our hand out. How many times can you put your hand out well, they're laughing at you and they're spitting at it. You're spitting in the wind. So there's a time when you have to take a stand, and we should all encourage the rest of our members to take a stand and to get information and make it exciting for them. You know, if you have to send a little like text to a member that you know might be on the edge of wishy-washy or something, just send them a little text that says, hey, what's up? I'm excited about this. Something, because we had 5 people that didn't want to stand up for the Searcy, I believe it was the Searcy resolution? Searcy, yeah, resolution. And part of that was a lot of people were confused because we had some legalese. And then people were looking each way because they weren't sure who to vote or how to vote. And there were other people, like I said, that were worried about upsetting people over fundraising. So if we're gonna let them come and change our opinion on the merit of how much funds they're gonna raise, we haven't taken our power back at all. And until we use this power, they're laughing at us. They're not trying to extend their hand back. We've asked. I'm on Ellswick's show every Tuesday, and I bring up, I'm not gonna name him out and shame him out, because I'm on Dave's show and I try to be polite. But I have events occasionally, but
You're so polite, Simone.
I try. I know I've got a lot better language around children now. So I'm on a radio show. Right.
Everyone's got a baseball team down south.
Right. But and the other thing, other than encouraging us all, that we if something doesn't pass and we feel strongly about it, I think we should try to bring it up at the next meeting and keep on and be persistent and do not give up, because that's what they want us to do, is give up. And then I have a question. Beyond all that, is there some force that either we can make a rule, like with what happened with the delegates, that they were supposed to give us this list, and they didn't. And so they didn't, so what, is basically what happened. Is there something we can do, and like we were talking about accountability, that as a body or something, to make a rule or something that can make it less comfortable for them to basically pull us off?
Okay, thank you. So I would just say that encouraging them to provide it, I'm gonna keep pushing to get the list. I believe that list is property of the convention. And so I would be encouraging them that way. There is an avenue. As far as a rule, I think they would just ignore it like they would any other rule. So but there's another avenue. And again, it's one of those like worst case.
Right.
You know, so hopefully we can avoid all that.
Jennifer, how about talking to the county committee chair, asking them to send you the list of their delegates?
We do have a lot of the lists. I will tell you that, just because we've gotten them from the county chairs, but we don't have all of them. And ultimately, what I would like to see is, and this is what I asked for the list that were sent to the RPA by the county secretaries and chairs, and then the master list that they used. And I haven't gotten anything, because, you know, there were clearly some changes from the lists that were made, that were sent within the 10 days per the rule after the convention, versus the list that was used to check people in. And so I've gotten nothing, but as far as the lists that were sent in, we do have a lot of those. So, and we're still working on it.
You go right ahead, sir.
Gary Beck, Swain County again. What is the last time that we can reconvene this convention before they can kick it out of the rule book?
I don't believe that the last date would be before the new one organizes, which would be in 2 years. And so, and I'm trying to remember.
Even before the state?
Yeah, even before the state committee. Is that what you're asking? Yes.
Yeah, because she said we don't need to wait and let all this die down and push out. I want to know when we got to move. We need to move. We need to march.
Strike while the iron's hot.
So as far as moving, well, we are moving. I promise. I'm moving. I moved all the way down to RPA last week, or a couple days ago. So
I'm not saying you. I'm saying us as a group.
Yes, yeah, I know what you're saying. Yes, I would start there. We need to. Now, something else that I probably haven't said. Joseph Wood said that Seth is out this week,
So I would encourage y'all to just go ahead and keep pushing. Before I take my next step, I'm gonna let Seth come back and see if he, Monday or Tuesday morning, if he goes ahead and reviews them and gets them published. And so I'm giving him that time, and so, I want you all to know that I have that is out there, may be a factor. But in the meantime, I would just encourage you to call and email and say, please publish them. We would like to see them published. And
Do we have an email address?
We'll get it.
yes,
We
yeah,
got it?
we can get that to you.
Okay.
Jennifer?
Yes, sir.
Seth is out all next week, but we leave next weekend to go walking for a week.
No, I think he's not just this week.
Oh, okay, this week.
Yeah, he should be back next week.
Okay.
And I don't think he's going to Milwaukee, but I'm not sure.
Well, that's odd. Let me jump in here real quick on the email addresses. What we can do in Scott and his folks in Saline County, Lori and Elizabeth and us in this county, if we'll put out the email addresses for Joseph Wood and Seth and anybody else that people would need to email. So we'll get those on social media. Okay, because I think that's a really good idea.
With Jennifer's permission, I'll text it to the entire Patriot list.
Yeah, I think
we've got the 360 that were on our side
Yeah.
in a text database.
And, but I think if we get those out there, Scott will do what he can do, Elizabeth and everybody will do what they can do, Lord will do what they can do to get that information out. If you don't get those email addresses, then please reach out to me, reach out to one of these people. We're easy to find, and we'll get that information. I just want to jump in there and say that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. I think sending out their work email, absolutely. I think every member should have it and be able to use that in an appropriate manner, and I know you will. So, yeah, I think that's fine.
And in addition to that, Mafalda is correct. Twitter is really where the hot stuff's happening politically, but I happen to think that most of our activity is on Facebook. So, get on Facebook if you don't already have an account. Get on Facebook and start following these various individuals, because this is where the conversation is really happening in Central Arkansas right now.
I would add to that, while Twitter, and nothing wrong with Twitter, I'm glad she brought it up. Twitter is more for a one line. It's just a short statement, so it's not as much informative. Yeah, it's not very informative to get the facts out. So on Twitter, you get those one-liners where somebody's reacting to something and telling you something, which is fine. But to actually slow down and get the information you need, especially in our age group, okay, is more the Facebook end of it.
And the Dave Ellswick show on the radio.
Yeah.
Or Conduit News. Or Facebook, conduitnews.com.
Yes, Ms. Jackson.
Okay, I've been doing this a long time in this state, some of y'all know that. I was a Tea Party leader for White and Cleveland County, and I also helped create 9 other county Tea Party groups. Organization is a very good skill I have. Don't want to do it anymore. I'm not volunteering, so I'm getting out of it.
Just get elected.
All those in favor?
Well, what I'm saying is, we cannot make the mistake that the Tea Party made.
That's right.
Yes.
We were all novices, and what was the mistake that we made? We got sucked in to the Republican Party.
Yes.
And they neutered us. They couldn't kick us out the back door fast enough. So they needed us to turn this state red. And once we did help them turn it red, they took all the credit for us and pitched us out the back door. Cannot tell you how many times I was threatened as county chair to have my committee disbanded.
They did it to others.
They did it for a long time, and everybody sits around, and I've asked other Tea Party leaders that don't participate anymore, did anything change? From the years that we marched, spent our money going to Washington, D.C., calling, writing, everything that we did back in those days. And their response, 100% of the time, was no. We have supermajority in the House, we have a supermajority in the Senate. They're all Republicans, that's our supermajority. Nothing changed. Because why? The RPA apparatus neutered the Tea Party members. We got sick and tired of it, and when we got our noses tweaked, we left. Now, the Tea Party groups that had no Republican county committee, they formed the county committee, and I taught them the rules. And Benny Speak said one time in a district committee meeting that he wished he had 100 Jackie Martins. Now, I'm not patting my own back, but what I'm saying is what happened to that movement is because the RPA apparatus with their money and their power and their connections shut it down. We cannot allow that to happen again. Cannot. Because, guys, this is not just the state that we have to save our nation. And we even had aspirations back then to go county by county and state by state. And that's what we have to do. But I'm telling you, if we don't take advantage of this movement now, it'll happen again.
Right. Yeah, and if I can expound just a little bit on that, I just want to applaud and say thank you to Jackie and so many others who have stayed the course, because Jackie is definitely one of those. She has been fighting for a very long time, and she is one of those people that poured into me and helped me along the way. And you know, if she had thrown up her hands and quit like many others, then there wouldn't be a Jackie Martin, you know, that has been so pivotal to our movement and getting us on the right path. So thank you, Jackie, for never giving up. And I think that should also be a testament to many of us. We're going to lose some battles. We're not going to lose this war as long as we stay the course and remain focused on what is right.
You cannot concede the battlefield.
You cannot, yes.
The war.
You cannot give up, absolutely. And the fact that she didn't give up should just be an inspiration to all of us, that even when things get tough, don't give up. And remember, it's we the people. It's not those with institutional knowledge. It's we the people.
Mr. Jones?
I'm David Jones from Faulkner County. I'm wondering, would there be any merit here for our group to select 8 or 10 representatives, contact the other folks, whoever they are? Y'all know, I don't know who they are. We want to meet with you guys, sit down face to face, use a little common sense here, and be reasonable about all this stuff, and discuss their issues, and let's see what we can work out. As it is, the way it's going, you know, we're all killing each other, you know. We're going to end up losing the war. They may win the battle or whatever, we'll lose the war. It appears the way it's going. You know, many situations, you ought to be able to sit down and negotiate some of these things, talk about our concerns, their concerns, where are they coming from, why don't they want to follow the rules, or whatever's going on. Let's be grown-ups about this and see what we can work out. Seems to me like that might be a possibility of trying to approach it that way.
I think if you want to have that conversation, then you should have that conversation. I will tell you, in my experience, that really doesn't lead anywhere. Are you a businessman? Are you?
I was, yeah.
Okay, so I'm a business owner too. We have a very different perspective on things. My eyes have been opened in just the few years that I've been really involved in politics. It is not like the business world where you think you can sit down and reason with somebody, because we're not motivated by the same thing, sadly. There are those of us who are truly motivated by making America again a shining city on a hill, and then there are those who are just purely motivated by power. And they say the right thing, and they say the things that they know we want to hear, but at the end of the day, you have to just watch their behavior. You have to watch their actions very closely. You know, Sun Tzu said, know thy enemy. And you need to, I would just encourage you to know your enemy in this situation. Jesus told his disciples, be as innocent as doves and wise as serpents. Yes. We have to be that way. And he said, he didn't just say be as innocent as doves and stop. He said be as wise as serpents too, because the enemy is out there and cunning and deceptive. And you just have to know who your enemy is and how to interact with them. And also, you know, I would encourage you as well to just, and not just you, I'm not talking to you, but just generally, you know, we constantly need to be going back to our founding fathers' writings. We need to be reading. James Madison is excellent when he's talking about human nature. He was a Calvinist. He knew that man is sinful and depraved, and he understood the dangers of when you start allowing the concentration of power to get in the hands of the few, because they are sinful. Even if they go to church and they claim to be a Christian, they're sinful men, and so often we forget that because the world keeps telling us that, oh, they're a good person, they're good people. No, we're sinful. Every one of us, and we're in need of a Savior, and we have to keep that in mind. So, you know, if you're wanting to understand maybe a little bit more about what we're dealing with as far as the personalities in that constant, while they may appear to be good people with a Christian background, there's still that innate human desire for power, and once they get that little taste of power, it just seems to fester and grow, and it's up to us to cut it off. And so, James Madison is a really good one to read about dealing with that and what to anticipate. So,
Right here, and then I got this lady back here, so go ahead.
My question would be has anyone reached out to maybe Sarah Sanders is, because of what, I know, but this would be the question, is that because she was the deciding factor for Joseph Woods to become the chairperson, the chairman, or whatever, if not for her, Dunklin, I was there, and this woman definitely 100% gave a speech that said why she was qualified for becoming the chairwoman. And if not for Sarah Sanders, she probably would have become the chairwoman. Has anyone reached out and talked to her and maybe said something to her about, hey, this guy's not capable of doing the job? We watched him at the convention this last time walk away, basically with his head down, and basically looked like what we saw last night. Yeah. Basically what we saw last night with Joe Biden, a deer in the headlights of one of the, just didn't know what was going on. Yeah. And walked off. Has anyone reached out to her and maybe asked, hey, can you help us do something about this fella?
Joe Wood is doing exactly what she wants.
Right. Yeah.
Another puppet.
Give her.
You've got to give people a chance.
She knows.
And I guess
think she knows, and I think she knew exactly what he was capable of when she chose him. Again, you have to remember in politics, I don't think, yes, and I have yet to see someone be appointed to a position. No, let me say this. It is very rare that somebody is appointed to a position that is actually deserving and has the required skill set to excel in that area. That's not what it's about, and that's why government has grown the way it has, and that's why it's a constant failure. It's because you don't have people with skills in those positions. And I think even Mr. Wood knew he wasn't capable. And I'm not saying he's not capable of other things, but he is not qualified for this position. And I said that in my speech, and I stand by it. Nice man, I'm sure he could do great in other areas, but this is just not it. He doesn't know Robert's rules, and he hasn't learned them since he was elected. Yeah. So, but to answer your question, I think she knows, but she did not select him because of his knowledge of the rules.
I just wondered if it would be possible. I mean, I know it costs you a 50 spot to get a picture with her.
Well, why don't you call her? Let us know how that goes.
All right, right here.
I'm Mary Ann Harrington from Pulaski County.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm gonna make a public confession, and I wanna actually address something that this man said. I was one of the ones that voted against the resolution in Pulaski County and whatever. And in reality, I guess I was hoping in my heart that people would be reasonable. And what I have found in talking with legislators and inviting them to come back to the Pulaski County meetings and all this, because they all just vamoosed, all right? They have all this reason why you were mean, you were this, you were that. I said, we need opposite viewpoints. I'm willing to listen to opposite viewpoints and make a decision about things. But when you don't come and you don't show up and you don't give your information, it creates, what am I supposed to vote on? So this last time we had the resolution come up, and I had some questions about, should we really get in their ditty bag, so to speak, okay? And, but hearing everything that went on at the convention that was going on behind the scenes, I say stick it to them. Stick it to them, okay? That's all I'm gonna say, stick it to them.
They need all
Right.
to get along.
Well, I guess that's one more you have to help it, or voting for you.
Margot, did you have, oh, no, yeah, let's go Margot and then we'll go to you.
They've been promoted to the level of incompetency.
Yes.
They're totally incompetent. The meeting was not organized,
Right.
was not run correctly,
Right.
and that's what caused all the problems. Bottom line.
Yeah, maybe since you weren't there, I don't know if there were some other people who weren't there. I'm sorry, can I just add this?
Yeah,
real
no, you
quick?
go right ahead.
So the first three, I think it was 3.5 hours, we spent dealing with credentialing.
Right.
And the reason why is because the credentialing committee, which should have started well in advance of a month before the meeting, was not allowed access to the list to do their job. And so we knew, I mean, that's already a red flag, that's a problem, right? I would think, you know, if I was in that position, if I was the chair, I would have the names available to everybody. Not posted on the website, be like, here's everybody, this is who you can expect to see there, who will be voting. And certainly the credentials committee should have had their job to do their due diligence and any investigations that they thought might be necessary. But the argument was, well, no, we'll just get you involved if there's a complaint. Well, that's not what Robert's Rule says. So that is why we spent the 3 or 4 hours. Part of it was, of course, just dealing directly with credentialing issues, but the other part, as I've explained, I believe was because they were trying to run out the clock, knowing that we were going to get kicked out. Well, I think they planned on that, even though, you know, at one point it sounded like, and I will tell you this, Sarah said that she heard Seth May say he would extend the contract, and then that's when he went outside, talked to the lady, and it was shortly after that we were told we'd have to leave because there was another meeting. But,
And the counties were mixed up.
yeah, the counties were mixed up. Oh, this is what I was gonna say. So there was an individual from Washington County who kept asking for a standing count. Now, I will admit, there was one time that I did get it wrong. I heard a different number than what the secretary heard, and we asked the counters to come back up, and they couldn't remember the number that was given. So we had to just look through the past numbers and determine that I had heard wrong, and we got it corrected. So that would have been a legitimate standing count moment. But all the others, it was just to delay and try to draw out the clock. And as we were to that point where it was obvious that I was going to have to move us, that is when I was asked to move up the voting of the electors. And I said, I'm not doing that because I know you all will leave to drop our quorum, so we'll lose quorum, and then the body won't be able to vote on all the things you all showed up to vote on. So,
You said that.
Huh?
You said that.
Yes.
During convention.
Yes. Yes, I said that, and that was my response to the individual who asked me to move the voting of the electors, because I knew there were too many games being played. It was obvious. But my point is that is why he kept asking for the standing count, because he didn't know we had another room to move to. They thought we were going to get kicked out. So that is another reason why there was so much confusion and chaos during the first 3.5 hours. Once we got to that second room, and they realized we were going to stay there all night if we had to. It kind of, things went a little bit more smoothly. So.
Yeah, but you need to mention also that Mr. Wood created confusion in the very beginning.
Yes,
Let's,
with the motion.
Let's get Margot's been waiting, so let's get Margot, and then we're gonna go right here, okay?
I just wanted to really applaud the sentiment of wanting to negotiate for the win-win, because obviously that's the goal in all of our public life, is to be in a situation where we can all negotiate for the win-win. And if you find somebody in the legislature that you can do that with, that's outstanding. But people have to see you as an equal to be in a position to negotiate for the win-win. And if someone is telling you institutional knowledge, they don't see you as an equal. And this is the thing about power, because many people, when they get that power, they start to see you as different. And that's really, by the way, the difference between a Republican and a Rhino, because the core principles of our party are freedom and responsibility. Freedom and responsibility, not for the few people that are elected in Little Rock, for everyone. And when somebody starts to think of themselves as another kind of animal from you because of the power that they hold, then they believe that all of us are really too stupid to make our own decisions, and they stop believing in freedom and responsibility. And that's all. I just wanted to say, you know, please don't feel like you're being shut down or dissuaded from, yes, find the people that are truly Republicans, that respect you as an individual and will negotiate for the win-win, and bring them in. So,
Let me say this, anybody that says Margot is stupid, is really stupid.
Obviously, credentialing did take a lot of time, and there was a lot of discussion about delegates and alternates. Had some question. I left with questions. I'm new to this, but I have a question about what the final decision was on whether or not a committee chairperson, with the approval of the committee, can appoint people to serve as delegates and or alternates. And I don't think I left with an answer. And it seemed to me that the group voted against the parliamentarian. The parliamentarian said, if the committee chairperson has been given the authority by the committee, then they can fill those positions after the meeting is over. But the group said no.
Yes.
Right. So I want to know the real answer.
But before she answers, let me say this. That's a fabulous question. It really is. I'm glad you asked that.
And I have a part two, which is a suggestion.
Okay.
So when we go up, I was a delegate, when I went up to get my delegate badge, all they asked was, what's your name?
No
ID. And I could have been there for somebody else and just given their name. And so if this is such an important job, if this is such an important thing, why are we not requiring some form of ID that matches the list of delegates?
I think that is a great observation and suggestion. The RPA, so actually under Robert's rules, the individuals from the credentialing committee are supposed to help with registration, but they said, we don't need you. We've got it covered. So they used their people that were hand selected to run registration. Even the executive committee was not a part of determining how registration would run. All of that was, it appears, handled by a small group of people. So I love your suggestion. I agree with your second suggestion, but I had no control over that. Nobody in this room had any control over that. Okay, first question. So, yes, and regarding the parliamentarian, that parliamentarian was hired by the RPA. Now, I thought he did a fine job. I thought he did a fine job. He asked me, because apparently he had heard me talking, or at least knew I had made comments, and told the people that the parliamentarian is strictly there as an advisor. He has no authority. He cannot vote. He cannot say anything. As a matter of fact, every time he was only allowed to speak because I allowed him to speak, which alternatively the body could have voted, but I gave him permission to speak because he was not a member. He was elected by the RPA. He is on a special list of the RNC chosen parliamentarians. So with that in mind, I just wanted everybody to have that in mind, okay? There may have been potential for bias there, but overall I think he did a fine job. We did have some disagreements, which I'm fine with that. I mean, if you guys know me, I'm fine with disagreeing. I think we should engage civil discourse. I think we should be having more discussions and talking about disagreements more often. I think that's how we're gonna become better and develop better ideas. That's why everybody was welcome to come to this and throw whatever questions you have at me, because it'll make me better and hopefully you'll get better too. But to your point, so the rule is really clear. I have my rule book over here if you want to read it. It says that the delegates to the state convention shall be elected by the convention. So that shall makes it mandatory. Now, he was saying, the parliamentarian's position was that if there are vacancies, then we can go to Robert's rules and we can fill them by giving the authority to the chair. I know that there are some county committees that do that. I disagree with that interpretation, because when it says shall, I believe that power rests with the convention. And he asked me when in our discussion, he said, well, what happens when it adjourns? I said, well, I don't think a convention should adjourn. I think it should recess to come back and do business later. So I'll give you an example with Saline County. We had our convention March 30th. We came back just last month and we reconvened because we had to certify a runoff election. So there's always the likelihood of those kind of things, maybe filling in more positions. So you should recess and fill those positions, because I think for a convention that holds so much authority and is capable of doing so much, it should only be elected by the people. I do not think it should be, I don't think any of that power should be given to a chair. Now that is just that's my personal opinion, but that is also, I believe, the spirit of the rules when it says shall be elected. And it did not say, well, you can give the authority to the chair. It does not allow for any of that. So that is my position. Now, because I know that there was at least a reasonable amount of counties that did, whether it was through custom or just their understanding of the rules, they believe that they could give that authority to their chair. That is why I allowed the body to vote on it, and I just didn't make a ruling from the podium, because I wasn't comfortable with that. I thought the body should decide it. And so yes, the body did vote and say, no, we want those positions filled by the chairs. And I think the reason, of course, I can't speak as to everybody, but because there was already so much question about the integrity of the credentialing process, I think people were just like, no squirrely business. If you weren't elected, we don't want you here voting and determining the course of where we go for the next 2 years. I think that was probably the sentiment.
So 2 points. One is, we already had people that had gone to extraordinary measures to be there who were appointed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was after the fact that they were notified that they could not be there. So from that standpoint, I think it was not a good decision. From the standpoint going forward, I just think that we need to make it very clear to everybody so that we don't have people showing up and then being turned away and getting a message that they're not valued.
No, I agree, and I absolutely hated that there were some people that had made the trek there, and that again was another reason why I didn't want to make that decision, even though I felt strongly about my interpretation. And I mean, it's what the rule says. It's not even really an interpretation. The rule says shall. So I hated that there were people who, I don't think everyone that was appointed was doing so, with nefarious intent. I don't think that at all, and that's why I hated that situation. But I believe the right decision was just to allow the body to make that ultimate decision.
I'm glad you brought that up, though, because we needed clarity on it. It's a great question. Thank you for that. Margot, and I'm going to come to Margot, but Margot wanted to add something to that
Yes.
from an expertise standpoint.
Yes.
Okay.
So it definitely is within the right of the convention to remove or add anybody, as long as it doesn't exceed the number of delegates allotted for the convention. So it may not have been the right decision, but it definitely, that is the final, according to Robert's rules, that's the final say, is the vote of the body. And then I just wanted to add that I was approached by somebody from Sebastian County, who she told me that when they elected delegates at their convention, there was no vote to empower the chair to appoint people. And that when they arrived at the convention, she and many others were very surprised at some of the faces that they saw there, and they approached their chairman and asked him what was going on. And then they didn't say anything about it, but they were really relieved when we asked for that roll call vote, and they weren't sure whether their chair was going to do the right thing and tell the truth about having appointed those people, but he said they were really glad that he did. So I just wanted to add that context.
And let me add in there go ahead, but let me add in there real quick. And I do know we had a deal at Faulkner County where some people came from Faulkner County, and that happened. Nobody's saying that the county chair of Faulkner County did anything wrong, but I think we cannot overlook the fact that we did have people that intentionally brought people there to try to stack it, and they did it the wrong way. But the rules apply to everybody.
Yes, and I agree, I do not think for 1 second that Jason Bollinger was doing, Jason was doing anything wrong at all. It's custom in some counties, and so that's why, and I realize that. It's custom, and they believe they were following a rule that maybe other people believe too. So, no, I'm not accusing I will accuse Washington County for sure, because I know that one. I know that one, and I checked their minutes before the convention ever happened, because I had gotten word about that one. But anyone else? No. Go ahead.
So, Mark Brennan, Alford County. When we were at the convention, I was approached by 2 individuals, and they came up there without being elected. Their names weren't on the list. They were just guests, and they were given credentials to vote, because we weren't asking for ID. And so I think what I would really like to push this, we need to check IDs when they come up there, and we need to have the list to be able to check the person off with.
Right.
So, we just have to put we just have to draw a line in the sand.
Right.
And say, this, going forward, this is the things that have to happen.
Yeah.
We had so much to look backwards and go, this was screwy. But going forward, we need to, we need to have our battle plan, and then we need to stick to it.
Yes.
For the December meeting when we have the elections.
I'm sorry?
The December meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have elections.
Yes. But yes, to your point, if we do end up reconvening, I will make sure that all of the delegates have the names of all other delegates, so you know who you can expect to see there, and we will be sitting by county. But I think because the chaos is what causes the confusion. That's when you start seeing chaos, it is usually by design.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when you should really be alert about what may be actually happening. Yes.
Kathy Dolan, Faulkner County. We were there for 3.5 hours, found out that we weren't supposed to be there, and snuck out because I was so afraid you were gonna call our name and ask us to turn our delegate forms in. Jennifer, I wanna tell you that I was so proud of you, that you were, really. We were embarrassed and ashamed. We were on a diet plan. We went out to fish bones and ate whatever we wanted. Felt better. Yes. Woke up the next morning and said, you know what? That is the gal that we need, because even though a lot of people were throwing mud at you, you stood by, and I totally agree with what you said. We spent a lot of money coming, but we got to go to the conduit meeting. We got to see the corruption that we could not believe, and I told our group, I said, in 2 years, I'm gonna be back, elected, and I'm bringing friends.
First of all, thank you for coming. I guess husband and wife over here, right? That's awesome that you're doing it together. And please don't ever feel silly or embarrassed. Every one of us have been there as we're trying to learn the rules and learn the process. People like Jackie, who's sitting right in front of you, she's a wealth of knowledge. Of course, Margot's phenomenal. She's with, she knows Robert's rules backwards, forwards. She's great. The Grays over here. I mean, so many people in this room. We all just work together, and we all make mistakes because we're human, and we're just doing the best that we can. So please don't ever feel stupid or embarrassed or anything, because we know that the majority of people are not doing it intentionally. Okay, we're all trying to learn in light of all the chaos and confusion that's going around. So thank you.
I
for
can
being
tell you,
here.
is every word rings true. As I sat next to that man and talked to him for about an hour at the convention, and he was telling me the same thing there.
Who?
I think his name is Mark.
Oh, Mark, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, he's our
District
district rep, yes, to the state committee.
He was my spy.
Okay.
I have one other incident where someone was delegated or whatever, or one of the Pulaski County delegates, when she went in and checked in, they had already issued her delegate badge to someone else. Wow. So,
I've actually heard a lot of stories like this, from people who were not delegates, got delegate badges, etc. all we can do is learn from the situation and move forward. But also, how encouraging is it that despite all of that,
Yes.
we still had the overwhelming majority, and praise God, we had so many great meetings. I mean, God was working, you guys. God really was working that day. And, you know, when we moved from the big room to the little room, I was praying. I was like, oh God, please let us fit. I want everybody to be comfortable. Please let us fit so we can finish this. And, you know, just enough people had left that we still had quorum and we still fit in the room. And, I mean, I really believe he had his hand over all of that. Despite the hurdles, we jumped through them together and we got it done. So congratulations to all of you. And it was an honor to just be there with you and pushing for all of that.
As I told y'all when you came in, I don't want to miss anybody. Okay, so does anybody have a comment or question that if it's in your mind, please don't be shy. Do it. Okay. Yeah. Oh yes. I'm sorry. I forgot. Come on.
No, go ahead.
No. I want you to.
Denton McCormick, Faulkner County. I was curious, Jennifer, if your other chair people that are responsible for the other three districts have been as proactive as you have been in this district, to try and get information, to try and move things forward. And if there isn't an area there for a groundswell of bringing people together.
Yeah, so Sarah Dunklin. So Sarah Dunklin, she is the chair of the first. I think she's in her third term. Now she is phenomenal. I mean, truly phenomenal. And I just want to say, I still think Sarah Dunklin would make an excellent RPA chair. Just throwing that out there. But she has been very active, and she is not just active in her own district, but throughout. And I consider her a very dear friend. And she is one of those people that will just pour into and invest in people no matter what time of day. You know, she just wants to make Arkansas a bastion of patriotism, and she truly wants to see America great again. So she is a phenomenal chair. I think Eddie is doing a fine job over in the 4th District. Now, Sarah and I, as you know, we've had a lot of our district meetings together because we want to bring everybody together. We believe in community, and we believe in the importance of everybody knowing each other and feeling like we're a family, because when we go into battle, you want to know who your allies are, right? And so that is why we like those joint meetings. Of course, it also just gives us an opportunity to celebrate together, to get to know each other better. I know in Saline County, we have a lot of folks who are doing life together, truly. Like we have our core Patriot group, and then they're starting to have meetings over health issues and, you know, talking about how to be healthier. And, you know, there's a prayer group, and that's what we would like to see across the state. You know, these same groups where we're just doing life together, and we know we can lean on each other outside of the political arena.
Well, thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
I was curious, though, is she or the other ones being as proactive with trying to get information? Or they refuse to go into the office? Have they called them on the phone?
Well,
Have they talked to their county chairs to try and do the same thing as you're suggesting we do here?
So, okay, I know Sarah will. No, I don't think the other chairs have. His specific question was, are they calling the RPA? And Sarah has been working very hard behind the scenes. She is helping me with the minutes because, as Elizabeth said, they are very lengthy. Helped with getting the RPA rules and the platform together. So she's been very involved. But has she specifically called Joe Wood? No, I do not believe she has, but I'm sure she will when that time is right. But, you know, everything doesn't have to fall on her or any group. You know, we all have that ability to let our voices be heard and you know, make the request of the elected leadership, right? You know, they're supposed to be representing us, and this is their job. And so, you know, if you want something done, then I would encourage you to reach out and have that conversation with them. But I don't know about, you know, 3rd District is, they're kind of their own animal over there. But there's a reason why the RPA moved the convention up to Rogers, as far away as they could from the 1st and 2nd District, because we are very, very active and very involved. And, you know, Eddie Arnold, he actually had his district join us for the Cary Lake event. So, you know, there's a lot going on positive in the 4th as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Margo had a great idea
Excuse me. Mafalda had a great idea about, she mentioned Twitter or the X, that we all are in sync in this and say the same thing and just shoot it off, because I'm on the X quite a bit and I see what's happening and I see the effects that it has. So I think we have to hit it in every direction, and she had a great idea for us to gather together and do it all at one time.
Okay. And before I go to Abby, let's get you, I know you want to get through the.
Couple quick things, Hugh Council, Faulkner County, the state, hopefully the reconstituted state committee, meets in December. They elect the RPA chair. When does that chair take effect? Is it immediate?
January 1.
Yes, well, I think it is no, that's right. They do finish out the term until the end of the year, and then it's January 1. But in addition to that, it's not just the chair. It is
Yeah, the whole thing, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And then there was, another question. It'll come to me.
All right, Abby.
Yes, my name's Abby Rector in Garland County. And just on the note that Jennifer was talking about, first and second districts, I am actually going to be running for the 4th district chair, and I've already spoken with Eddie, and so he said that he will help me however he can, and I'm, I would love to be able to bring the 4th district and join with the 1st and 2nd. So if y'all know anybody in the 4th district, please let me know.
All right, yes, ma'am, go right ahead.
Denise Hepburn had to leave. I'm Mary Ellen from Faulkner County. With the increase of We the People doing grassroots efforts, she has taken on from FAIR, which is the national organization, to go to different counties to talk about illegal immigration. And coming out of that effort, we had a meeting with Jackie and Abby, and there were several others from Garland County, to talk about that. And you guys haven't been told, please save the date of October 1st, 6:30 to 8:30. We're gonna have a town hall in Greenbrier at Herschel Hall, dealing with, every time we talk to our legislators, illegal immigration is a federal issue, we can't do anything about it.
Right.
But what we are doing is we are going to have presentations. We have selected, we can't deal with everything. There's time limit on the 2-hour, there's a limit to how many different ramifications. We're not gonna talk about medicine and education. We have chosen voter integrity because it's time to vote. With all the talk about letting illegals vote this time, that's a very pertinent issue. We're gonna talk about trafficking, drug, and we've got a Democrats sheriff coming to do a presentation on that. So this is a town hall not just for our Republican Party members, it's for anybody to come to hear about these issues. And that we're also gonna have a panel of legislators that are being invited, that we can get their feedback for what they heard, and then we, as in the audience, can ask them questions for half an hour as a follow-up to what the presenters do. So October 1st, please put it on your calendar to save the date. We don't have everything locked down yet. Your county committees will be told about it as we get things finalized.
Okay, thank you. All right, listen, real quick, and then I've got to start wrapping up, if that's okay.
I took a vacation, left work, went back, I got a stack of emails that tall on my deal. Send that guy that's gone on vacation that email, burn him up.
Yeah.
Burn him plumb up till his computer crashes.
That's right.
I just want to say something quick. I know I've been blabbing a lot tonight. One thing about what I heard when I was on the radio with Dave is the person that was talking about institutional knowledge. This is just to help you all understand what extending your hand gets you. Is this man
Institutional knowledge?
or institutional lies is what I call it. But he literally and proudly, arrogantly said that I voted against what the people had put me there to do. And he defended it. like on air in front of everyone. He defended what he looked like. Instead of being a representative, he was like your daddy. He was protecting the institution, and he honestly believes he was doing the right thing. So there are people that we're gonna extend a hand to that aren't capable of understanding where we're coming from.
But he broke the rule.
Right, he broke the rule, there should be more consequences than just.
He's no longer a member.
I know, but thanks a lot, you know? But yeah, just to say that, and I also wanted to say, there's so much gratitude for Second District, for you, for, I think Pam Spirit was with us, Pam Lloyd Shields, for those of you who know. Because she was part of Pulaski that didn't get seated, and, there was so much there, and so many people put so much work into it, with Conduit News, all of us getting together. I live off this stuff, that was my birthday weekend, and that's how I chose to spend it, because I love being around all you guys. And I just want, if we could have more of these things, I would love it. Tonight was supposed to be a town hall for all these other people that had problems with our convention. You don't see a lot of them showed up. You had a few people that might have mentioned that they didn't get seated and they asked questions, and I applaud that. That's awesome, because we rented a car, we had help with a hotel. I mean, I have a dog, so I had to get a 2-day hotel. He's on a lot of drugs. Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to everyone who facilitated it, and thank you so much for being our voice. We're not like behind you as your people. You work for us. And you are a mom, you're a lawyer, you do all kinds of things. And we appointed you to help us because you get things done.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I do. And you go out of your way. And I'm going to shut up.
Remember, those servants won't break their own.
All right, we're gonna go right here, and then Mr. Jack, and then I'm gonna have to start closing it out. We'll get a final message in. Is everybody good with that?
But if there's anyone who has not gotten a chance to ask a question, I do want to answer it. So please, and if you're nervous, don't be nervous. We've all been in your seat, okay? Every one of us were like, what's going on? If you have a question, please ask it. There truly are no dumb questions.
So, Teresa, we just heard from Fulton County, and one other clarification that I think we really need to take care of before the next convention is what happens when some of the delegates don't show up and some of the alternates need to be elevated to delegates. I don't know that we should have to vote each one up to a delegate position. Shouldn't it automatically happen if all of your delegates can't come and you have alternates already appointed?
So so the alternates are elected, and they're elected in numerical order. So when somebody falls off, then you're supposed to go to the first person on the list.
The county chair should be.
Yeah, they should be handling that and updating accordingly. So she said the county chairs are supposed to be, yes, because they're gonna be the ones that would know who's coming and who should be in contact with those individuals, and then in communication with the credentials committee, and be addressing that along the way.
The county chair knows which of the elected delegate can't make the convention, because they need to let him know. And then he'll contact the alternates and say, okay, this guy can't be a delegate, can you go in their place? And they go, and it should be in order.
It should be in order. So at the convention, we shouldn't have to deal with that at all, correct?
We should not have had to deal with
Any of it.
3 hours.
We spent a lot of time doing that.
Yes, and again, by design, to confuse everything from the seating, not being seated with our counties, to all of that was designed to confuse. Marco, you wanna add something?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that it shouldn't be necessary, but it absolutely was necessary that we added alternates one at a time the way that we did at this last convention, because as has been said so many times, nobody ever got to see the list, so you didn't know whether someone was a valid alternate or whether there was really a missing delegate unless we considered each case individually.
And there were some county chairs that were not ethical.
Yes, and so that's why it did take longer, just to make sure everything was done right, because truly, I mean, I know this word gets thrown around a lot, but you really are disenfranchising a legitimate delegate's vote if you allow someone in that was not properly elected under the rules.
And you knew when we walked in the door that there were illegitimate delegates in the room, correct?
Yes.
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 Let's get Jack, and after we get Jack, I got a quick thing to say, and then we're gonna let Jennifer give a final message, okay? right, go ahead, Jack.
We've been talking about the RPA. The RPA are politicians. Some of them, all of them. Those that aren't elected are politicians because they want to be with politicians. We just had a meeting of the Faulkner County Republican Party this last week. Mark was the master of ceremonies. We had 4 politicians sitting up front who said they were willing to answer questions. They didn't. One question which I submitted had to do with why we even have an income tax. We got 5 minutes on how, over the last 10 years, they've lowered the tax from 7.5 to 5.5.
Taxes.
I'll die before they get rid of that tax. Because they don't want to get rid of the tax. They don't want you to be in charge.
Right.
They want their, thank you, they want their perks, they want their parking spaces,
Yes,
they want
that's
their
it.
special.
Amen.
I don't even sit next to my wife and I still got women breathing. They want their special license plates so they can go fast and get away with it.
Right.
They want all those things. What they don't want to do is do their damn job.
Right.
That's right.
Well, we've been talking about it tonight, and I tend to be a little more plain spoken than most. I try to be nice, but I just can't. It's time to kick their ass.
Good.
It's time to take the RPA outline of which they can kick their ass. If Joe Wood can't do the job, if Joe Wood can't do the job, get rid of him.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it.
And by the way, if the RPA isn't willing to work with us, then you can blame Sarah.
Yep.
Because the RPA reflects the governor.
Yep.
So think about that as well.
Yep.
Remember, the state's motto is the people rule. Well, we don't rule unless we actually do.
Right.
So let's just take control again. Thank you.
Last one, and then I gotta say one thing. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Do you want the mic? You're soft spoken.
No, I'm fine.
I'll hand it directly, I mean, I can read it for you. I just,
Rebecca from Lincoln County. Who is the executive committee? When you look on the rolls, it's like when I look on the list, I don't know who is it's not updated. So could you tell us who's the executive committee?
So the state executive committee is made up of the RPA chair, the secretary, first vice, second vice, treasurer, assistant treasurer. You have the 4 district chairs, the national committee man, national committee woman,
Executive director.
General counsel. Who'd you say?
Executive director.
No?
Is he on it?
No, he's not on
Rules
it.
Committee,
Chair of the rules committee.
all the congressmen technically.
Yes.
Well, speaker of the house. Well, no, it's not. Majority leader, yes.
Yes.
And then,
Aren't the presidents of different groups?
oh, president of, yes, thank you. Republican women's groups, the young Republicans and the college Republicans. You know, it's in my rule book.
In other words, it's stacked against the people.
It is. There. So when we have our executive meetings, it is typically, appointees to the state executive committee.
AACA chair.
Yes, AACA chair. There are a lot. But this is the easier way for me to explain it. So when we have our executive meetings, it is me, Sarah Dunklin, Anita Wells, and Steve Smith. And we always vote together. And occasionally we get Eddie Arnold and Brent Smith. Brent Smith votes with us pretty often. Yeah, he votes with us pretty often. But so it's those, what is that, like 5 against all the others. So.
That's why we need to elect officers.
Yes.
That reflect the will of the people in December.
Yes, and that is why this upcoming election is so important, because if you really want to change where we're at and you really want to see things getting done, we need you to elect people that represent our values to those positions, and you have this opportunity in December.
And it will fight.
That will fight, yes.
Rebecca, really, that's a great question to see who's on there because people don't know. So I would ask Frank, Scott, Lori, maybe Elizabeth can get the list together for Faulkner County, and then everybody post it. Post that information out there because that is a very good deal.
Yeah, we need their names.
So, it's the U.S. Republican members of the U.S. Senate or House of Representatives, they're ex officio, the Republican leader, House of Representatives, the Republican leader of the Arkansas Senate, and any Republican elected to serve as a state constitutional officer. They're all ex officio, but they can be on it. So I have it pulled up over here if you just want to look at it. There's a list of 24 people. Now, do I have the names? No, I could tell you the names as I'm looking at this. But no, we've been here a while. I told you all the names.
Yeah.
Finance chairman. But yeah, it's all right there. But no, I mean, I think all of that information should be on our RPA website.
Yeah.
I think you should be able to contact them. You know who's voting. I will tell you, when Joe was elected, I think it was the following week, I went and met with him and I asked that we would record all of our executive meetings and then make them available to all of our RPA members. So, he didn't like it, I could tell at the time, but he said he would look into it and let me know. And
all right, let me.
have people running to those positions in December?
I'm trying to convince Sarah Dunklin, and I welcome any help that you would like to give with encouraging Sarah Dunklin to run again, because she would be phenomenal.
Listen, let me say this before we get out of here, okay? And then Elizabeth's got something. Then we're gonna let Jennifer wrap this thing up, okay? Just real quick, I sense the frustration they have for a long time, and I know everybody wants to go at it now. Everybody wants to take a chainsaw and blow it up. Okay, well, I know we gotta strike while the iron's hot. I get that, but we have to strike smartly. And that requires patience. And so what I wanna ask all of you to do, just a message from me to y'all, is I know what you want. I know what we want. And everybody's ready to do it now. But there has to be step by step. And so we have to have patience, and I think the important thing is to understand that the leadership we have in place, not just Jennifer, she is our leader, but the team that she's assembled right under that, have patience. And we're gonna get there. The things that happened at the convention allow things to set up, as Margot said, hey, a lot of this stuff will take care of itself in December, right? Because of the things we set up, right? Okay, so let's do that. But while we all doing it, and you all know me, I mean, I'm the guy, I'm a bull out of the chute, right? Okay. But I would say this, while you all want it and you deserve it, and it's the people, follow the leadership and follow the patience. Because if we get impatient, we're gonna screw up. And Elizabeth wanted to say one thing, and then I want Jennifer to get away with a final message, okay?
I want to follow right in with that. Jennifer was on the radio not long ago, and I'm going to speak for you. She said, know your tribe. Know your tribe.
Thank you.
Number 2, learn your rules. I know many of you in here have already started in on that. But Margot and certain other people, we need help. Y'all need to learn the rules too. It's hard. There's a lot to it.
Now I'll volunteer for that.
Learn the rules, be confident in what you know and what you don't know, and stand up and ask the questions when you don't know, because 90% of the people probably are feeling like you are. And use what you know and stick together. Know your tribe, learn the rules, be confident, stick together. That will get us where we want to go.
Yes, and to expound a little bit on that too, it's being confident about it. And remember that they will always treat you like you're done.
Yep.
That is something I learned very quickly. They'll roll their eyes, they'll huff, they'll be like, oh, you're wasting your time, how do you not know this? All that condescending talk. Don't let it bother you. It's very likely that at least 80% of the people in the room agree with you, probably have the same question you just asked, and are grateful you asked it. So ask anyways, and don't let them treat you that way. And keep asking your questions. I will tell you, I ask questions all the time. We should all be asking questions because there's so much to learn in this. Do you want to say something?
No, I want you to give a message. And
give a message.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you take your time.
I will put on a slide. I can't think of anything. So I guess what I would say is, I have learned that there is a sentiment among many of our elected leaders. They like to share some thoughts from Edmund Burke, and it's a quote where he says that so oftentimes the elected leaders have this special knowledge, and it is their responsibility to use it for the good of the people, even if the people disagree with it. Okay, so basically, it goes back to what Margo was saying. They see us as less than, and they need to make the decisions that are in our best interest. If you read Thomas Jefferson's writings, he talks about how if the people disagree with what the elected officials are doing, then it is the elected officials' jobs to educate the people. They should be having town halls like this. They should be allowing you to ask questions at your county committee meetings. I know exactly what you're talking about because we've done it where we've invited them to come speak, and then they'll be like, oh, I went overtime, and then they run off, you know, and they just don't answer or take any questions. They should be taking the questions, and if they can't, then they shouldn't be in that position. Right. So I agree with what you said. We really need to be holding them accountable and saying, hey, we expect you to have skills and have the skill set necessary to do this job. But yes, important to stick together, get to know all the people in this room, the Grays, Jackie, Margo back there, and Jimmy. I have to thank you, Jimmy, so much. And you guys, how funny is it? Like a year ago, everyone was telling me you were a Democrat. And I think you were a registered Democrat. He didn't know he was a conservative. Okay? So sometimes we have to educate people, and now we're truly getting kicked out. But Jimmy, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Thank you all for coming.
I'm on Tuesdays.
They're on Wednesdays.